Kent School Services Network, or KSSN, is a community school initiative where we operationalize the 6 essentials or 4 pillars of the community school strategy. We do that by placing coordinators in the buildings. Currently, we're partnered with 43 schools to place 44 coordinators in the buildings. This looks like resource coordination in the form of housing, meeting basic needs, or just helping them, find tutors or things like that. Been around since 2006, and this was a strategy that was evolved out of more of a social innovation kind of lens. We know schools are not always equipped the students in the populations that they serve with the challenges that they face. But yeah, it's just one of those things where we needed to have something that was a little bit more innovative. Essentially, this was one of the strategies that the community embraced.
This is one of the coolest pieces about KSSN is that it was a community, and it was community-led, a community idea, and basically the county, schools, philanthropic organizations, nonprofits came together and said, how can we best support students that aren't achieving and those that don't have the resources? And so there was a group of foundations that went to New York from Detroit and Grand Rapids and looked at Harlem Children's Zone and looked at Children's Aid Society. Came back, Detroit decided on Harlem Children's Zone, and Grand Rapids folks decided to do the community school model through Children's Aid. And so totally philanthropic funded the first 3 years and put in place and looked at the data and really saw some of the schools that were most in need of services and supports, and started it off with a 3-year pilot, and then from there it's where it is today.
It has residual impact when children feel comfortable in different spaces and their families feel like they're supported with those wraparound services. Then children come to school ready to learn, and it has greater impact on just the overall school environment. Also, it's connecting families to our schools and to our community, and so families feel empowered to ask questions or to use our community coordinators as a resource if the school is not able to do certain things, and we've seen lots of evidence of that over the years.
But we also know that when we task educational professionals with duties that are beyond their expertise, that means we're taking away from the areas that they can make the biggest impact for change. And so when you bring in a school coordinator, that has expertise in those other areas, you then free up not just time, but you also free up the headspace of our teachers, of our administrators, of our counselors, because we work in partnership. So for example, when we're working with a family of a student that is experiencing chronic absenteeism, we know that absenteeism is just a symptom. We know that there's other factors, and so while the school may be able to address the attendance with a student, but when we engage with the family, we're going to find that there is a variety of other reasons that are causing the student to be absent from school. Could be transportation, could be housing, could be mental health. And so when you partner with a school family coordinator along with those meetings, and then we uncover that there are other needs because we have a trusting relationship with the family, they're going to be vulnerable with us because they know that we're there to help, then each member of the team can perform the role that is best aligned with their expertise.
Having a community school coordinator embedded in the community schools is extremely important. As a community school coordinator, we're able to work with those families one-on-one. We're able to build a connection with those families where they can trust that we have their best interests in hand. And so sometimes we find that as a coordinator, we're able to develop those relationships outside of just the classroom, whereas maybe a teacher may not have the time to work on that. So teachers usually come to us, say, hey, we noticed this is happening with this student. Can you follow up with that family to ensure that they're getting all the support they need? And so I think that's really good that we're able to connect with the teachers as well as the families to provide resources. And once we are able to work with those families and find out exactly what it is that they need, then we reach out to our community partners and try to find a support system for them or a resource for them. So as a community school, we want to be that hub of the community where our families feel comfortable with coming to us for any kind of need that they may have.
I would share that it's not for the faint of heart, that when you get into changing systems and structures and policies and customs, you have to go through people to make those changes happen. And sometimes you have to go through legislation and other, I would call these old, outdated systems to be able to make change happen. And change is not easy for people who simply just want to come to work and do a good job, and as they see it, but not realizing the big picture and that we're all a part of the equation of all of our children being successful in school. So getting everybody to see that they're just one cog of the wheel, and that perhaps if I were to make this adjustment or that adjustment, or if I were to change this, perhaps collectively we could have a greater impact on the outcome for our kids.
Let's look at majority culture coming in. One thing that in education school, you don't really get taught that classroom management piece. It takes years. It takes those master teachers. When you have someone that is also a partner in the school setting that may have been there for a while or that may be from that school system. We have persons that have grown up in community, that understand that community, that speak the language of community. So for a teacher to not have that connection or to try to draw that connection with a student, they may be challenging. Having someone there that can say, I've tried these methods, let's see what you can have a conversation with the student or have a conversation with this parent about what's happening in the classroom. And having that team-based approach, right? Having an administrator that understands KSSN, having a teacher that engages in KSSN, and having that community school lead, it's such an important team approach to those issues. We may be having issues in attendance, right? Because a parent may not be safe in driving to school because of their status. So having that community school lead that says, well, these are the issues that the parent is facing, or hunger. A lot of behavioral issues are because of hunger. Having a KSSN worker, it can then say, I have snacks in my room. Come over, let's talk about it. That mitigates in its resolution rather than just applying the, well, I'm gonna send you home approach. That is something that a lot of schools and systems depend on, sadly.
So I'll tell you that when my superintendent at the time came to me in 2010 and said, hey, we've got this community school coordinator, we're gonna try this new program, KSSN, and you're gonna be the first school in the district that has it, and this person's gonna work with you every day, and I'm like, what are they gonna do? You know, how is this going to work? And so Sarah started in with us, and we quickly became a very well-functioning team. Sarah has been able to support our families with food, clothing, shelter, and especially as those demographics have changed over the years and the needs have become more and more great, she is able to help so much to help prevent barriers for kids in school. We want kids to be able to come to school to learn. And we know when they're facing so much trauma, they're facing so many needs at home, they're stressed because of what's happening in their household, that's really difficult for them. So if we can take away some of those barriers for the children, then we find that they're able to learn and focus on school a lot more effectively.
There was a house fire in a house right next to our playground. So we saw it happen. We called 911. We ran over there and realized it was family of one of our students. And so we were right there on the scene. We, helped out as much as we could in the moment. But then eventually it came out there were lots of issues with the insurance. And so we had a lot of work to do. We worked together with the family to reach out to local landlords. Because like I said, not even affordable housing, just housing in general is hard to come by around here. I think I wrote like a support letter for the family to this landlord to try to get them to rent to them. And then while they were renting and trying to start getting some money together to fix up the house again, the city condemned their house and they were going to tear it down. And I was actually on maternity leave at the time, and I started getting texts from this mom, and she's like, my house is going to get torn down. So Mary was working, I wasn't. So we worked together, and Mary, I believe, actually talked to the city and were able to get the demolition order taken off the table. And so the dad of the family is a construction worker. They worked for so many years to get it built back up with what little insurance money they got, and they just moved back in I think about a year ago. So it took them 5 years to get back into their house.
Bueno, en mi persona nos ocurrió un caso donde nos pasó algo inesperado y la escuela Godwin se unieron para apoyarnos, y gracias a ellos todo fue más fácil para nosotros, porque sí fue un caso difícil. Muy difícil, que la verdad no supero todavía, no lo supero. Miran nuestras necesidades y buscan la forma de cómo darnos soporte a la familia y a los estudiantes, todos en conjunto, como una familia, nos miran como una familia, y eso es bonito.
For other districts that are considering a community schools model, I would say, what's taking you so long? When we think about what we learned through the COVID pandemic, we learned quickly about the importance of physical wellness. But we've also seen, prior to COVID, but certainly since COVID, a significant increase in mental health concerns for our students. We've seen the highest rates of chronic absenteeism that we've seen in our schools, and there's a variety of reasons for that. So when thinking about a community schools, that's standards and community schools model. Some of those things I just mentioned are reactive measures. I would think about it in a proactive measure. How do we think about thriving youth? How do we think about wellness? And how do we think about all those factors that go into healthy, thriving youth into their academic success?